They think their ego makes them powerful, but after watching this, you'll understand why it's their greatest weakness. Every time they try to dominate, to belittle, to prove themselves superior, you'll know exactly how to flip it, because when you can control your ego, theirs becomes your weapon. This is psychological judo, and you're about to master it. Let me expose a secret most people never figure out. Ego doesn't care about truth, it feeds on illusion. And that illusion, it's simple, I'm better than you. You walk into a room and someone instantly sizes you up. Not based on what you've done, but what makes them feel taller in comparison. They tilt their chin upward. Their smile is just a bit too patient. Their words feel supportive, but hollow. You'll get there. That's a cute idea. I used to feel that way too. These aren't compliments. They're signals. Signals that say, I'm above you. Stay where you are. And if you're not paying attention, you'll fall for it. You'll start proving, explaining, reacting. And that's how they trap you. See, the ego doesn't attack you directly. It lures you. It uses condescension disguised as curiosity, mockery disguised as mentorship, control disguised as advice. They don't say, you're beneath me. They make you feel it with their smirk, with their slow nod, with the way they correct you mid-sentence, like a teacher addressing a child. And if you have any need to prove yourself, you're already in the trap, because now you're not responding with strategy, you're reacting with emotion. You're trying to climb up to their level, which means you've accepted you were below them in the first place. That's how ego games work. They don't force submission, they provoke it and let you play your role. Understand this, the person that talks the most is usually the one performing. The one who watches, that's the strategist. And when someone thinks you're stronger, smarter, better, they want you to start performing. They want you to talk more, over-explain, show your emotional investment, show them how much you care about their approval. Because once you're dancing for validation, you're no longer a threat. You've become predictable, manageable, easy. That's why smart people lose to arrogant ones in social dynamics. They get emotionally entangled in needing to be seen. But you're about to stop all that. Here's the paradox nobody tells you. The more you try to prove your worth to someone who thinks they're above you, the less worthy you seem. Because if you know your value, why argue for it? Why defend what's already true? This is what ego-based manipulators rely on. They press your doubt to make you perform. They poke your pride to make you speak. They nudge your insecurity to make you lose control. Most people fall right into it, not because they're weak, because they don't realize ego can only manipulate the parts of you that are unresolved. So when someone underestimates you and you feel the need to prove them wrong, that's not strength, that's unhealed pride. And they see it, smell it, and they press harder until you finally snap and they walk away with a smile, having won the exchange. Here's what you didn't realize. People who think they're better than you, they're not evaluating your intelligence. They're testing your ego. They're watching for emotional reactions, tension in your voice, changes in your posture, any signal that they've gotten under your skin, because that's the currency of their power, control through subtle disruption. And the second they sense your ego flinching, they go in deeper. You feel smaller, they feel bigger. And the game continues until you decide to stop playing. And here's the hack. You don't fight ego with more ego. You don't beat arrogance by being louder. You beat it by being still, by letting them play their role while you study the scene. Instead of arguing, observe. Instead of proving, plan. Instead of reacting, disarm. Because when you stop needing to prove anything, you become something rare. A man who is unbothered, unreadable, and unprovocable. And people don't know what to do with that, because it flips the entire power dynamic without saying a word. Let them think they're smarter. Let them feel like they're ahead. Let them speak while you listen and build leverage. Because when they think you're beneath them, they stop lowering their guard. They stop watching their back. They forget to stay sharp. And that's exactly when the quiet mind wins. The most underestimated psychological warfare isn't confrontation. It's submission on purpose. Let me repeat that. The most dangerous move in the presence of ego is to let them win the first round. Not because you lost, but because you know something they don't. The person who thinks they've already won stops being careful. Ego creates blindness. They start over-talking, They share too much. They reveal their motives and they stop seeing you as a threat. That's your opening. In every ego-driven interaction, there are two people, one performing and one watching. If you're the one reacting, correcting, or proving, you've entered the spotlight, you've entered their game. But if you stay quiet and if you remain calm, curious, even less experienced, they perform for you. They think they're leading the scene. But really, they're dancing in your theatre. Because you're not reacting, you're observing. Because you're reading their timing, their tone, their need for dominance. You're collecting intelligence while they expose themselves. And this is the essence of the hack. Let their ego perform. Smile, encourage it, feed it, and use it to map their blind spots. You don't beat arrogance with louder confidence. You beat it with strategic invisibility. Try this in real life. When someone makes a passive-aggressive jab, don't bite. Smile, nod, let it land. Say something like, I'm still figuring it out. I respect your experience. That's a good point. I'll think about it. They hear submission, but what you're really giving them permission for them to expose more of themselves. Because the ego loves attention, and it doesn't know how to stay quiet. While they talk more, you speak less. And while they feel superior, you start collecting their insecurities, their core need for approval, their emotional pressure points, their overcompensating behaviors. You become the mirror that never reflects back. And that's what makes them vulnerable. Here is what happens in their brain. They assume they're dominant. Dominance reduces social caution. Reduced caution leads to over-disclosure. Over-disclosure gives you patterns, weaknesses, and leverage. Meanwhile, your brain is cool, composed, strategic. You're in cold cognition mode while they're in emotional inflation. And that's the imbalance that flips the entire dynamic. You've come this far, that's good. That means you're ready to break free from the invisible chains that hold you back. The whisper secret isn't comfort, it's the blueprint to ruthless intelligence. You don't have to steer the conversation directly. You just got to give them room to show off and then pivot it at the right moment. For example, when they name drop, ask, how did that happen? Did they trust you from the beginning? Let them dig deeper into their pride. Let them get emotionally attached to their own version of the story, because now you own the frame. You haven't dominated them, you've allowed them to dominate themselves, and now they're trapped in it. Your job isn't to look smart, it's to be underestimated long enough to win, because the moment you correct them too early, they put their defenses up. They start watching you, they start adjusting. But when they don't see you as a threat, they don't block, they don't hide, they don't suspect anything. And that's when your influence slips through undetected. A single sentence, a well-timed pause, a recalibration of the room when you finally speak with clarity. And that's all it takes to reset the entire social balance. And everyone in the room will feel it because it came from silence, not force. This is the hardest part for most men. Can you tolerate being underestimated so you can win strategically later? Can you sit quietly while they flex, while they make assumptions about you, while they tell the story as if you don't matter? If you can, you ain't losing. You're just trading short-term pride for long-term position. That's how the strategist thinks. Because the ego wants applause now. The mastermind wants checkmate later. When they finally realize you weren't the fool, you were the one who let them feel smarter, it stings. It rewrites the memory of the entire conversation. It haunts them because they remember your quietness, your restraint, your naive agreement. And now it's clear you weren't beneath them. You were above the game. You don't fight the ego head on. You don't try to out-talk them. You don't chase their validation. You let them talk. You let them believe. You let them perform. And while they're feeding their illusion, you're building your strategy. Because the most underestimated man in the room is often the one who walks out before the power. At some point, the people who think they're better than you will realize something unsettling. You don't flinch. You don't argue. You don't explain. And that silence, that ain't weakness. It's calculated distance. You've stopped playing the ego game. And now you're untouchable. Because the man who don't need to prove himself can't be pulled into someone else's story. This is when they begin to panic. Not because you threaten them, but because you didn't fight for their validation, you didn't try to rise to their level, you just stood still, quiet, grounded, and unreadable. And to the ego, that's terrifying. When you master this ego hack, you become what most people can't understand. Someone who doesn't perform for attention. Someone who doesn't rise to bait. Someone who doesn't explain their worth. They'll call you cold, arrogant, detached, too calm. Because what they're really feeling is their own discomfort with your inner calmness. You've removed their favorite weapon, your emotional reaction. Without that, they're disarmed, their dominance dissolves. Their voice doesn't land the same. They keep trying to provoke the old version of you, the one that would defend, argue, chase, explain. But you've evolved. And that evolution creates silence that screams. Most people try to dominate by being louder. You dominate by being still. And here's the secret. Stillness reflects. It bounces their energy back to them. It forces them to see their own noise. They speak in arrogance. You respond with precision. They posture. You stay relaxed. They escalate. You remain still. And suddenly, they're exposed. Because without your emotional reaction, they have nothing to feed on. And in the eyes of others, they look unbalanced. And you look composed. They look like they're trying too hard. And you look like you've already won. You're no longer loud. You're no longer proving anything. And that makes people nervous. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you're planning. They feel like you're hiding something because you're not trying to be seen. And that mystery, that calm refusal to perform, it becomes a psychological weapon. Because people who crave validation don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need it. You stop fighting for respect and people start giving it to you by default. Not because you asked, but because you made yourself unplayable. At this point, you're no longer reacting to their games. You're watching them lose control in real time. You'll notice it. They repeat themselves. They seek more eye contact. Their tone becomes more forceful. They ask, "Are you even listening?" Because they are. They don't know it yet, but they're unraveling. You're no longer trying to match their energy. You're absorbing it, converting it, and harboring it, and staying anchored. Because power doesn't raise its voice. It holds its presence. And presence that doesn't need approval is power that can't be bought, can't be manipulated or broken. And this is the final shift from the guy they overlook to the guy they can't ignore anymore. Because now you no longer care about being right. You no longer explain your thoughts. You no longer need to be liked. When you move, people feel it. They remember the silence. They remember how you didn't try. They remember how you didn't bite back. And that memory changes them. You weren't the underdog. You were the weapon hidden in plain sight. And when the final moment came, when it actually mattered, you said the thing that broke their illusion. Not with rage, not with ego, but with precision. This ego hack isn't about being humble. It's about being dangerous without display. It's about choosing silence when others yell. Choosing stillness when others rush. Choosing depth when others flex. Because the man who doesn't need the world to see his strength controls the world's reaction to it. So next time someone tries to prove they're better than you, let them win the small game. Let them believe they're smarter. Let them speak. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate you. Because the more they talk, the more you study. And the more they assume, the more you build. And when the moment arrives, you won't say much. You won't perform. You'll just make one move and everything they believed about you will collapse. Quiet, permanently, without mercy. Because the smartest man in the room is often the one no one saw coming. Until it was already too late. And if you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't about ego. It was about evolution. You're not here to shout louder. You're not here to compete with noise. You're here to disappear from their game and build one they can't enter. The truth is, most people will spend their lives trying to prove they're smart, strong, worthy, superior. And in doing that, they'll burn out their mind, expose their weakness, and sabotage their own potential. But you've chosen something different. You've chosen stillness over spectacle, silence over validation, strategy over pride. That's rare, that's dangerous, and that's why you'll win. So let them underestimate you. Let them talk, let them laugh, let them feel like they're ahead. And when the time comes, don't explain, don't warn, just move. And when you do, Make sure it's the kind of move they'll never forget, because now you don't need to be heard. You'll be remembered, and you walk like you know exactly who you're becoming.